Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. This is your host, Steve Ramona, and I am excited. Just found out in the green room, in the back room, that he's a Marvel fan, which I am. So we've already connected that way. But loyalty and serving go together. And what Len does, my guest, really collaborates that. And I'm excited to talk about that. Len, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Steve. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, it's great. You know, I know your business is about loyalty, but we talked again, before the show about Cerebral. What does Cerebral mean to you? And put it in a context you were telling me about earlier.
Yeah, so it's a word it's pretty infrequent, but the first time it was positioned to me, it was actually someone defining me, Len, saying, they saw me as a cerebral individual, and I took it in and I thought about it and what it meant, and it really is how I try to act day to day, and it's to take in as much information as possible before I comment on things, before I action on things. It's probably something I'll always have to work on, is not to be emotionally charged on things. So being cerebral is really about that. It's sitting in a room, as it applies to my day-to-day work here at Engage. It's getting all the facts before I advocate for a solution, because really at the end of the day, we solve problems. That's what I love to do. And being cerebral is, again, being that quiet, kind of appearing to be a type B personality person in the room, getting as much info as possible.
I like that you solve problems, because in servant heart, people that are serving are solving problems. What do you think is a servant heart to you?
It's really that it's solving problems, serving people. It's all the same thing. It's when I listen to, as I try to grow, I listen to individuals, and Simon Sinek had that conversation, and a lot of people look up to him. But when he really defined what Apple did, and I know it's easy to idolize these big companies, but it really takes a step back as to what you do. And Apple thinks different. They just happen to do it with products, and they just happen to do it in that industry. And I would say, myself specifically, but our team here, we really try to solve problems to provide elegant solutions for people. And at the end of the day, that's serving people. Loyalty is about creating a relationship with people, making their life a little bit easier. And we do that. Our tools are technology, loyalty programs is the discipline we do it in. But at the end of the day, we're really just solving problems.
And loyalty is such a tie-in with serving. When I first learned about you this morning, when I was looking you up, sounds like I was stalking you, but I wasn't, I promise. You got to be loyal to your people that you're working with to serve. That goes together, right?
Absolutely. It's loyalty is a relationship. At the end of the day, when you define it to a customer, to a member in a loyalty program, or just speaking in general, it's a relationship, and a relationship has the give and takes on both sides. Now, you can define that with a currency in loyalty programs as points, but really at the end of the day, that's just a way to define a number on something. But it's, as a company, I want to give you something that's beneficial to you. So it's, hey, Steve, we're going to give you some points in order for you to be loyal to us. But the reality of the day, the points are just a value on top of the fact that I'm giving you something that you're looking for, and that's the relationship aspect of things.
Yeah, and it's interesting with currency and loyalty and the points. When you do it, you're really changing the paradigm of that relationship, because you have to have value. We charge for what we do, but that's a servant part too, right?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. The word currency. I mean, currency was introduced because people, they had that servant relationship. Yeah. Early on in the world, right? As I did something for you, you did something for me. It just, as the world grew, as it became this global entity that we live in today, you needed to have a currency around that. And loyalty points is just doing the same thing.
Yeah. With that and what you do, you work with large companies. What's the challenge, and how do you get past those challenges? I know people listening are going, hey, I want to work with XYZ company or $100 billion company, but there's fear. How do you guys handle it? How do you work with them?
So we just grew into it. It was just this natural thing. I remember really early on in my career, and I think, I use this day to day when I work with some of the younger people in our organization, the uppercomers. I realize how bright, how innovative they are, because when we started, we had some really great ideas, and we always sat there and said, it would be incredible if we could take these ideas to large corporations. We could just do so much more if only our client base was X and, the biggest brands in the world. And we got there, and we kind of just got there naturally. There wasn't this big, I couldn't point to a day. I couldn't tell you October 15th or anything. But what I tell people is there's good and bad with that. Large organizations can't be as agile. They can't be as innovative. So that's why they're looking for entrepreneurs, smaller organizations to work with. At the same time, they're everyday people like you and I. Steve, you and I could be two people in a startup in our garage, or we could both be CEOs of some of the largest corporations in the world. At the end of the day, it's Steve and Len here. And that's what I tell everybody is when you got 10, 15 people in the room, don't be fearful of the brand behind their business card. They're just individuals like you and I.
What I'm hearing, which is very powerful, is organic, first of all, because it came to you organic. You weren't pitching it, chasing it. But number two, the building of relationships, whether it's the $100 billion company or a startup, that sounds like it's important.
Absolutely. Relationships are everything. And, that brand you build with your name throughout your career, and that's not just a professional career, it's a personal career as well. It's the most important thing in the world. It is, if you can be authentic, if you can be yourself and you can help people, that'll make you successful in a lot of different areas in life. Again, personally, professionally, with friendships as well. So it applies to business. Be authentic, bring value to people, and you'd be amazed that value is actually exponentially worth more with larger corporations.
We're talking about fluff here and, hearts and I love it. But I know listeners are going, but what do you do when you have a company that doesn't fit this model, or you start working with a company that doesn't fit this model? How do you handle that?
I'm going to use the word authentic first, which is a fluffy word. But at the end of the day, you've got to be true to what you provide, the value you have there, and the partner you're working with. And that can lead to some hard conversations, getting to a point, and we've been, I don't know if the word's fortunate, but we've been in a position here where we've fired clients. And it's a tough thing to do, especially when you're growing and you're looking for every piece of revenue. But I would argue, stay focused on what you do best, make sure it's core to what you do. And if you get into difficult areas, first of all, hit them head on. Like there's no value in hiding from things or kind of pushing them down the road. And then if it is not going to work out, I think there's a lot of respect for individuals who can admit that this isn't working out or it's not a beneficial relationship. Again, back to loyalty. It's a relationship. It's a win-win. And if it can't be a win-win for both parties, then, you need to be strong enough to walk away from something.
And that's a servant heart too, or servant leadership, because it's good for you and it's good for that company because neither one are helping each other, right? So there's no value for both of you, right?
Yeah. And it can get toxic and there's no value there, right? There's just no benefit there.
Right. Toxic's a great word because it can't happen. We've seen it happen on the news and different things. So loyalty is a big part of what you guys do. How do you, because I think business owners will want to hear this from you, Len, is loyalty with your employees. I think that's extremely important.
Yeah. And again, this is natural stuff, which, as an organization, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. Don't have the background or the chops in large organizations. And it was always great when things were, I'll call them emphasized back on us or re-emphasized that we were doing the right things by people. So as we got leadership training, as we got managerial training, we learned that a lot of the tactics that just seemed natural to us were tactics employed by large organizations, but these things had to be taught and they had to be given big names and, which was kind of surprising to us. But again, back to the people, we've got amazing people here. I tell anyone that listens, clients, partners, the growth of this organization is tied to the people. And I think it goes back to what you said, Steve, is, having that servant mindset, building these relationships with people, whether they're the people we work with, whether it's the clients we have, has allowed us to grow. And we've had organic, natural loyalty because we've been genuine. So we've done things for people in our organization, sometimes people have gone through some hardship at home, people have got sick, and it was natural for us as the founders of this organization to say, you know, oh, you got to pick up your kid from school, just go. You don't need to fill out a timesheet or anything, or you need Friday off because you want to get out on a family trip. Absolutely do it. And what we always saw, and when we look back, is those are the same people that got up at night to tackle something or got on a call on a weekend with a client, and it wasn't quantified in any way. There wasn't this, you get 5 sick days and you owe us 5 days. It was just this wonderful symbiotic relationship we had with our team here. And it's reassuring, and it's, you know, validating to see when we started getting into this training and as we grew as an organization, these were all the things that they're telling you to do. It was just natural to us.
Yeah, and natural is not easy to do. So kudos. And it's interesting, you guys didn't start the business working with large multi-million dollar companies. It happened. Why do you think that happened?
You know, without sounding egotistical, we're really good at what we do. We truly are, and there's a lot of people that are good at what we do. So I'm not going to argue we're super special. In fact, we don't think we're that special. This is natural for us. Is we walk into a room, we establish solutions. We've got some patents as an organization, and every time we do this, it just seems natural to us. And I think these large organizations have just, you know, caught wind of what we've been doing. And, you know, as people move on in organizations, and some of the people we've been fortunate enough to partner with have brought us into organizations, seeing our value. And we went from, in a very quick amount of time, from, you know, I'll call it regional players to global organizations that we've been fortunate enough to work with and continue to work with. I think back to our, oh, sorry. Back to our earlier point, no difference in working with these people, same types of people in the room, just different size organizations.
Yeah. I mean, and if you didn't meet these larger companies, you guys still would be successful, right?
Yeah, I think so. You know, my dad always said to me, he said, just work at something, stick to it. And if you stick at it, you'll be successful. And successful is a relative term to so many people. And I think, you know, you measure success in different ways. It doesn't have to be, you know, billion-dollar corporations. It doesn't have to be, you know, specific work-life balance. It's really being happy, walking into the office every day. You know, the old adage, I haven't worked a day in my life, is something I still say. So that's success.
That's a great phrase. And how long have you been doing this?
Too long, 20 plus years.
Okay, so and you're saying you still enjoy coming to work. Again, cliche, but you mean that. And what's interesting, you are still successful no matter what happened, because I think you're an employee-centric company, which whatever happens, but people, process, and product. I think people's number one first. I get that from Marcus Lemonis, his show, The Profit. Shout out to The Profit. You want to sponsor, let me know. But you've said people a number of times. I really appreciate that, because I think that's lacking in a company, especially when COVID hit. We got to go right back to the people. Hey, we've got to pivot, right?
Yep.
It's going to come back to the people.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. I think if I look at Engage as an organization, we probably could do something completely different tomorrow. I'm not suggesting it would be easy. Full respect for people, but who run companies and have different disciplines. But we got some great people that solve problems, and I think we could pivot and still be successful thanks to the people.
I like you just said that, people that solve problems. A lot of companies say we have great people, which is awesome, but you add that little caveat of solve problems. They all solve problems, whether it's you at the top or the janitor clean the garbage can or the bathrooms. They're all solving problems, and that's such a great mission for a company. Remember that your employees solve problems. Can't say any better. Let's get a little negative in a good way. We all have failures in business and in life. What's one failure you can think of that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome it?
There's been a few, and they've all helped me grow as an individual. I think the ones that matter to me most, I think if we stick on this theme of people, is when we actually started to see attrition. And for the longest time, we didn't. People stuck with us. They were around for a while. And when some people started to leave the organization, people may or may not see it as a failure. They may see it as a natural course of business, but I did take it as a failure, and it was personal. And we really had to understand why that was. And it actually tied to the growth of the organization. So as we were growing rapidly, we weren't necessarily what we were, and it wasn't a conscious thing. It just happened by getting busy and maybe some travel schedules, and that mattered to me a lot. So I could sit here and talk about failures with clients, missed launches, issues with our services or products where we've had those types of things. But I go back to a failure in this organization is when we had good people move on, and if they're moving on for the right reasons, we encourage them to do so. Don't want to hold anything back. And I think some of the best things is when our people become really successful somewhere else as well, because it essentially is kudos to us, almost like we're that college that they learned at, right? But when people left because they didn't think we were the same organization, that was a failure. And it took a lot of, reflecting internally as to what those things were. And, we had to address them, and it took a bit, but I think we've righted the ship as an organization, and it helps you not make those mistakes again. When you sit to make decisions, you think back about how those decisions impacted the people here. And I'd say, again, a failure for me, and I'll always look back on that as losing any good people.
I like that you said you made decisions, because I think when people have failure, they're indecisive, which is a decision in itself. We hear that all the time, but it is a decision. You guys made decisions. This happened. We made a decision and it worked out. If it didn't work out, you just make another decision, right?
Yeah. You got to be decisive, right?
Yeah.
You have to be one way or the other. We used to have I think we stole the motto from the Facebook team was, go fast and break things early on. And that's a decision, right? And I encourage people make that decision. We have a safe space here for things to not necessarily work out the way you want them to, aka failure. And we're okay with that, because like you said, being indecisive effectively is not getting anything done. And you're naturally going to fail for your target by being indecisive.
Well, I think we got to tell the people you just started a new business, Engage College. You had mentioned earlier. Half kidding. We're going to work on that later. So this all falls back into the servant mentality, doing business with a servant's heart. You mentioned a little bit earlier about employees, because it could be doing business and life with a servant's heart. Why do you think it's so important when an employee comes to you, we'll delve in this deeper, and says, I got to take Friday off. My wife's got a doctor appointment I need to be at. And you've got a big project going on that needs this person. How do you handle that?
It's trust. You got to do the right thing by people, right? And you got to trust that if I'm going to look after you, that's really my job here. As once I get into C-suite, as much as I love to get my hands, I'll call it dirty, and be in the weeds, I don't think the guys want me there anymore. I think my days are done as far as providing value that way. My job is really to make sure people are in a good mindset so they can be as effective as possible in their job, and that starts at home. If you don't go to that doctor's appointment for your significant other, if you can't be there for your kid's softball game, that's going to weigh on you. And really, we want people here to be happy, and projects get delayed. Sometimes deadlines get missed, things happen, and the world moves on. Not ideal, right? You always want to meet every timeline, but life goes on, the world moves on, but you'll never have another opportunity. And we see this all the time on LinkedIn or on the other social things. That post always comes up is your kids won't remember, the late nights you pulled when you were younger, but they'll remember if you missed the family vacation or you missed the softball game or the hockey game or anything to that effect. So that's why it's important, is if we can keep everybody in the happiest mindset that they can be in, we know that they'll produce for us.
And that's a cool. Positive mindset is, and that all comes from the top, right? You have multiple founders. You're partners, right?
Yeah, I've got partners. So myself and our COO, Jonathan Silver, exact same mindset. We'll be the first two people when someone needs something. Go. That's more important. We'll figure this out.
So
And
both, go ahead.
and the community rallies around that as an organization. So
Uh,
it's not just the two of us. It's ingrained in the people here. Again, is that so and so is not feeling well. We got you. We'll figure it out. I can't make this meeting. What can we do? Right. And again, I'm probably doing a disservice because people will be coming after and the team members that engage left, right, and
yeah.
center. But we really do have great people.
Yeah. And that leads to a great question. It's important the partners to have the same mindset of serving, employee centric, whatever you want to call it. Because if you and your partner didn't, you and the CEO, Jonathan, didn't have that same mindset, it sounds like it'd be difficult.
Absolutely. It's important that you're not the same person, that you guys can complement each other as far as personas, as far as core competencies, things of that nature. But you got to have a very aligned vision on how you want to treat people. And definitely we're aligned there.
Yeah, vision. That's a good mindset and vision, because that's Simon Sinek, your why. That's your vision. If you're not going to be a servant heart business, you're going to be more of a taking business. It's all about profit, and that's it. You can't miss that. You got to miss that doctor's appointment because we got to hit profit. And really, is it that big of a deal? Maybe it's a $50 million deal, and that person can't be there. Is it really that big?
Again, don't think so. Rather,
Yeah.
walk away from a piece of business like we talked about before. There's so many big companies, and it's never that crucial, right? People sometimes get in meetings, and we've all been there. People raise their voice, and this is the most important thing in the world. It's probably not. If you're in a Sev 1 urgent situation where you're dealing with something, sure, you got to deal with it. But most other things, you can find a way.
Yeah. You're such a good person. I want to ask you this question because you're going to give the audience a great answer. Why are you such a good leader?
It comes from home.
Mm.
I'll tell you a story. Don't share it much, but I was 13 years old, playing hockey, and we'd lost a tight game. And it was one of those chippy affairs in a hockey game, as chippy as 13-year-old hockey can be. And we lost the game, so we were out in the playoffs. And at the end of the game, I came racing out. I was a goalie. Came racing out of the net to the other goalie, and there was kind of some people in the stands that thought it was going to be something contentious. And I shook the goalie's hand and I said, "Great game." And one of the parents came up to my parents at the end of the game and said, some people were nervous about what Len was going to do, but they saw the handshake and and it was a little guy on the other side. He was growing, and I gave him kudos, and they said, "We didn't expect anything else from your family." So kind of a long story, but I am who I am because of my parents, and give them all the credit in the world. I am a fraction of the man my dad is, and that's still incredible. So I would argue I got this from a wonderful upbringing.
Kudos to your parents. I'm really close to my dad when he was here. I love that because our environment we grew up with really helps. You can still be a leader with a bad environment, but doesn't it make it easier?
So much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for being on. We ran out of time. You truly have engaged. You're doing some incredible things. I can tell by what you talked about in this show. You're a true servant heart. I want to thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Great conversation, Steve. It's different than some of the other conversations I have, but I love this a lot. So look forward to any future talks we can have as well.
Thank you. Definitely. We got a lot more to talk about. Check you out in the next episode. And thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon. This is a recap of the Len Covello episode on doing business with a servant's heart. Len is an amazing individual, amazing partner, amazing founder, but he uses Cerebral, his brain, to be able to learn more. And he really serves his clients, his employees, and he's always thinking about how to help somebody, how to serve somebody, and just how to be better. I look forward to seeing you on more shows. Don't forget about my new TV show, Together We Serve. Look for further details soon. Have a great day.